Hi everyone. My name is Delario Lindsey. I am a sociologist here in the sociology program at Marymount University. I'm also broadly speaking an urban scholar, and I am very, very thankful to have the opportunity, and thank you, Carol, for giving the sociology program at Marymount the opportunity to be a part of this panel, be a part of this discussion. I do not, because I'm winging it, as Carol said, I do not have a presentation, but I do have some remarks, and I definitely have some questions that are addressable to some of the people that have already spoken. So I'm kind of acting like a discussant in a conference, whatever. So I guess if I wanted to talk about a broad theme, I think one of the things that I would sort of bring to the table first and initially is the idea of fairness as it is associated with urban development and growth, right? In the sense that we could all make the argument that increasing prosperity, growth is something that is highly desirable, but there seems to be a tension in the way in which growth and development are implemented in terms of policies, and certainly in the ways in which lives are affected or people's opportunity structures vis-a-vis housing are impacted by some of the ways in which growth is formulated, right? We can say that Arlington is not alone, obviously, in some of the ways in which housing dilemmas have been structured here. This is a nationwide problem. Across the river, they're probably dealing with it to an even greater extent than folks here in Arlington are. And arguably, it's a global phenomenon, right? World cities, large, important, influential urban conurbations is the term we use, are all over the world having to deal with the increasing affluence and decreasing diversity of one or another type, right? I think in some instances we are looking at what can be described as a redefinition of what it means to be a city dweller or an urbaner, right? In the sense that we are not any longer talking about cities being a collection of communities. In this instance, communities being different types of people, having different backgrounds, different opportunity structures, different incomes, living together and making the city what it is, but the city becoming more and more associated with one type of individual, and these would be more affluent or elite individuals, right? One of the things that is interesting to me, and I guess a question that I would have would be associated with the degree to which Arlington and other cities are following a particular type of developmental model. And this is associated with scholars like Richard Florida, who make the claim that urban development, or at least future forms of urban development, will be associated with the idea of attracting a creative class, right? And these creative classes are not just artists per se. That would be an older way of thinking about the creative class. But creative class would be folks who are associated with the highly skilled technological industries, right? People who create things instead of using paintbrushes or metal. They create things using software code, right? And these are most often younger people, right? So the idea of the future of cities, in the sense that if you want your city to be a space that is thriving, you have to think about attracting, or what you need to do to attract these new, I guess, the new workforce of the future. And I guess the question that I would have with that, in terms of there being a flip side to that, would be associated with the idea of, in a sense that Florida says that if you attract these folks, you would attract diversity. But I'm thinking if you also work to a greater degree to attract the creative class, you're probably also going to create a situation where you're going to have increasing homogeneity, at least socioeconomically. In the sense that if you work hard to create a city that attracts these creative types, which is a noble goal, there's nothing wrong with it in principle, you are probably going to create a situation where you are also working hard to drive out people who were associated with those traditional notions of community, the traditional notions of what the city was, right? And again, I think the question for government is, what will be the priorities at that point? Or another question is, how do you strike the balance between the two? So some questions that I have, and these are questions that, because I'm here to learn, right? So these are questions that I have associated with some of the presentations, the wonderful presentations that were given today, right? Questions in particular related to zoning. Something to think about in terms of incentivizing relationships between municipalities like Arlington and developers to actually have it be something worthwhile for developers to actually put money and effort behind creating affordable dwelling units. And I think one of the problems would be how we define affordable housing, right? I think typically people are trying to push the idea that affordable housing should be always 30% of income. Always. Like that should be what affordable means, right? If you want to have a program in your city that is associated with the idea of promoting affordable living, 30% of income is genuinely agreed upon as the base number, right? So 80 to 100% of area median income is something that may not, and again, it is proving to be not so affordable as a way of sort of thinking about what the middle are capable of doing, right? Another question that I had is related to what we would refer to as these lifestyle amenities, right? A lot of mixed use developments are popular. They're popular with me, in fact, because of the idea of walkability. And this is something that is itself an amenity for urban living. But that also has costs in the sense that developers market walkability as a reason for paying $1 million for a condo, right? So there has to be a way in which, again, a happy medium between the promotion of transit-oriented housing, walkability, and affordability. I guess the question would be, are we saying that walkability is something that you can only afford if you can afford walkability? In the sense that is it only something for those elites? Or can middle-income families, we're not just talking about the millennials who are righteously writing our future using software code, but families, working families should also have access, I think, also have access to those amenities. Some of the, I think, cultural priorities, right? I think I have a question like, are our cultural priorities for that detached house with the front and backyard? How has, as I say, that is the typical understanding of the American dream. Is that something that is holding back, different, sort of housing solutions? Are people who are fixated on having a front and backyard and a picket fence, substituting, the perfect in place of what could be the good, right? And again, that's a broad sort of cultural sort of question that I would have. And I think, and I'm curious about the condo fees. Like, where are these increasing condo fees coming from? Is it associated with, again, the land under the building? Is it a way in which the condo associations are extracting further wealth from their tenants, from the people who are co-owners? I find that perplexing. And I think some of the social housing solutions, a couple of them were presented today, would be fantastically implemented solutions or alternatives to some of the issues that are associated with. Again, the middle is not only missing, I think in some instances, in some places, they are being pushed out. Right, so to refer to them as missing is to add a layer of mystification. We actually know what's going on. So there's an idea of describing these processes in terms of government priorities. And as I said, I'm here to learn, and I'm very thankful for Carol and the League of Women Voters for having us join this panel today. And I'll just save my questions for the Q&A like everyone else. Thank you so much.